But this is a big theory, okay? Because I've been working on this one for months now, and I think I can finally explain it. And if I do this explanation right, I'm gonna turn it into its own video. All right, so you may see this as recording on YouTube. If you are watching the recording of this on YouTube, hi, we love you. Come to a future live stream. We just saw the 0 hour trailer. Let's rehash what we're getting from this. All right, the Dark Presence is showing up. I don't believe that the Dark Presence is the true big bad of Fortnite. I still believe it's the Nothing. I still think the Last Reality is coming back. The reason for that is because if the 7 are returning, the 7 should be corrupted or influenced by the Last Reality due to the events of Fortnite Chapter 4 Season 1 during the Oathbound quest. We know that the last time we heard anything about the 7, their existence was being reshaped, was being sculpted by the Last Reality. Does that mean that the Last Reality is coming back too? Yes, I absolutely believe so. I also think that because of the connections in Fortnite OG to the main Chapter 6 storyline, especially with the cube, the color of the cube being contaminated by the red rifts, right? All of that stuff happening. Holy shit, Logan with $2.
Amy is coming back too.
Logan, if you would just be patient, I will tell you. Thank you for your money. So because of the cube being contaminated in Fortnite OG, being the same color as the red rifts being the same color as the demon portals from Chapter 6, and also the tomato head being teleported onto the OG island, on the Chapter 6 island, it shows a clear connection between those two things. Also, there's one small chink in the armor to my theory about the 7 being corrupted. If the 7 are corrupted, why isn't the Visitor corrupted, right? That would be the next logical question. Here's the reason why. It all comes down to one major theory that I have been alluding to all of you guys for the last few months, which is the time loop theory. I'm not necessarily the originator of this. And this is not a new theory. This has been around for a long time, but it just hasn't been relevant in the Fortnite storyline until now. Mr. JOY, Tedious, pretty sure even Restro, Cyan, like we've all had conversations about this in the past, but this is my version of the time loop theory. And this is how it goes. Back in Fortnite Chapter 2, Season 8, the Cube Queen had an anthem. In the anthem, I forget what the exact quote of the line was. Mr. JOY would know. What you're doing is in vain. It's all in vain. We've been through this before. Basically, it implied that all the actions that the 7 were taking were pointless because the Last Reality knew what was going to happen. Then there was I think a quest with Dark Jonesy on the chapter, which if you don't know, Dark Jonesy is like a corrupted, it's kind of like he's the Jonesy equivalent of a Dark Bomber, right? One of the infected, corrupted cube characters that we have on the Fortnite island, right? Talked about, I believe it was implied, like he had like not a voice line, but he had a quest line which implied that the Last Reality had the ability to look into the future. Clumsy Wood, thank you. All a part of the game I made for you. Game of the Wreck. You're just a player in my show. The Dark Oracle. Thank you, Mr. JOY. Some of the particulars I can't remember exactly, but that's why I'm so happy I got y'all in chat because you guys are setting me straight. So the Dark Oracle in Game of the Wreck, your fight with the 7 is in vain. All the part of the game I made for you. You're just a player in my show. Right. So those were some of the lines that the Cube Queen had. Fast forward to Fortnite Chapter 3 Season 4. Fracture. There's a deleted cutscene, and I know that technically a deleted cutscene is not canon, but it shows narrative intent for what the direction was for the storyline, okay? The Last Reality mothership tries to absorb the 0 point into the ship. The 0 point breaks out. What that did is that proved that the Last Reality's main goal was to obtain the 0 point. Fast forward to Chapter 4, Season 4. Dr. Sloan says that there's something approaching the island, something that feels familiar, but it doesn't feel good. Whatever it is, it's not good. Basically, she's implying something evil is approaching the Fortnite island. Something evil, something familiar. It's not good. It's basically coming to attack the island. Because of this, we have to do a Hail Mary play by going back in time to the OG island, which is when we went to Season OG. The events of Season OG happen. We redo the black hole event all over again, right? In between those little events there, Dr. Sloan is sending us voice messages, letting us know how what we're doing is changing the future. I don't want to get into the particulars of like all the old storyline stuff, but here's the point, right? In chapter 4, there were a lot of things that were pointing to the last reality having influence on the island, on the current island that we were on, right? For example, all those old structures, those like Mayan temple looking structures, even like the ones where Optimus Prime's voice lines were and everything. A lot of the designs and the architecture look similar to last reality ships and iconography that you would see like on last reality spaceships and armor and stuff. There is a connection there too, but that's not what's the most important. The point I'm trying to get at is this, okay? To get me back on track. So we were sent back in time by Dr. Sloan, but we never really knew why. We didn't understand why. When we did the Big Bang event all over again, the one thing that we did know is that it kind of reset the timeline. The Chapter 5 island, it was theorized, was the same island as the Chapter 1 island. But we find out at the end of Remix, really going into the start of Chapter 6, it might not be. And that's because the 0 point in and of itself, the 0 point is fractured. It's fractured throughout the omniverse. It's fractured throughout time and space, which is why islands like Oninoshima, the current Chapter 6 island, it's the reason why that island exists. Right after Chapter 6 starts, we get Fortnite OG. And Fortnite OG is doing its thing. It's running along the normal course of events until the visitor pops up. When the visitor shows up, that's when things start getting a little weird. The Imagine Order bunkers that were on the OG island started flashing in Morse code. Chat, remind me, what was the first message? We had 2 messages that popped up in Morse code through the bunkers. What was the first message? No, something is wrong. Thank you. Something is wrong. It said something is wrong. I appreciate that. So we had that, and then we had the visitor saying something. Remind me exactly what he said. I know y'all be able to tell me, but it was something along the lines of things feel familiar, or I've been through this before. Something along those lines. I remember these places fondly. Is that what he said, Mason? Was that the voice line said? The TV, that's right. The TV said it's happening again, which is interesting, right? That was very interesting that the TV said that. But the visitor had also said something, which I think Mason is right. I think the visitor said, I remember these places fondly. So the visitor is recollecting these events over again. So the visitor remembers everything, which, let's go back to the previous question I asked. Why is it the case that if the 7 are corrupted, why is it the visitor doesn't appear to be? Here's my answer to that. It's the first piece of the puzzle that we need for the time loop theory. What if the visitor is corrupted and he doesn't know it? What if the visitor was allowed to escape from the last reality? Let me give you another thing that's a little odd, and it's always been odd about the Fortnite storyline, even all the way going as far back as Chapter 1, Season 4. What did the visitor show up in? It was a meteorite, right? Okay. Let me ask you another question. Let's fast forward a little bit. Chapter 2, Season 6. The trailer that we just watched together, right? Zero Crisis. What did the Foundation show up in? It was a meteorite. Okay, let's rewind back to Chapter 1, Season 4. When the meteorite broke off, or when the meteorite crashed, what broke off from it? Hop rocks. Okay. What color are hop rocks? Hop rocks are purple. What other things in Fortnite share similar properties to hop rocks? The cube. The hop rocks, and I've thought this for a long time, but the hop rocks always felt like they were fragments of the cube, or they were made from a similar substance as the cube. Let's fast forward a little bit. Chapter 4, Season 1. The kinetic ore. What did the kinetic ore look like? It looked like the cube. What did it have similar properties to? The hop rocks. They all have, whether it's the cubes, the kinetic ore, the hop rocks, they all have this anti-gravity kind of feature, right? But what the hell, Clark, what the hell does this have to do with the last reality and the visitor and the meteorite that he came on? Well, if the hop rocks are fragments of the meteorite, and the meteorite is kind of similar, or the properties of the meteorite are kind of similar to the cubes, and we know the cubes come from the last reality, well, what if the meteorite was from the last reality? What if the ship that the visitor escaped on was from the last reality? What if the last reality led the visitor to believe that he was escaping. Now, think back to the song from the Cube Queen. You're all, I forget the exact quote, but you're all part of my puppet show or my play or whatever, right? The idea that the last reality is allowing the seven to think that they're doing something, that they're progressing through history. Let's take this another way, okay? The AIM robot that we saw in Chapter 1, the end of Chapter 1, Season 6, going into Chapter 1, Season 7, okay? The one that popped up on the Fortnite Island right before Sergeant Winter did, right? And we saw Sergeant Winter with all his other aimbots, but there was the one that popped up for some reason. It looked like a scout, right? It was searching for something. This is Chapter 1, Season 7. Let's go back. Let's fast forward all the way to Chapter 4, Season 1, the very end of Chapter 4, Season 1. We have the Rift Gate. We know that the Rift Gate is a portal to the last reality. This dark presence, or sorry, not this dark presence, the shapeless man that's been talking to Stellan, trying to tell him to create this Rift Gate. This dark presence that wants to rip the island asunder, the one that wants to destroy the current Fortnite island, the island that's also currently protecting the 0 point, the very thing that the last reality wanted all the way back in Chapters 1 and 2 and 3, right? This dark presence seems to want the exact same thing that the Nothing did back in Chapter 3 when the Chrome came and it ripped the island apart. Okay, cool. All right, fine. All right. Shapeless Man. So the Shapeless Man wants to rip the island apart for whatever reason. We don't know why. But it seems to me, from my perspective, going off of previous storyline context cues, it seems that the dark presence, it seems like the Shapeless Man wants the same thing that Nothing did, okay? He wants Stellan, for some reason, to build a wormhole, a rift gate, specifically a rift gate, a portal into another dimension. When we start testing the rift gate, we send little test subjects through, right? The little devices, the items that we send through the rift gate, they come back corrupted, and we find out that they are from the last reality. That's when we find out that the seven were corrupted, okay? Because whatever the hell was on the other side sent us a message saying, we have them. We're sculpting their existence anew. You may find them, but when you find them, will they be the same as what you remember? Right? That was basically what this thing was telling us. Why am I bringing this up? Well, Amy, the AI that was created by the scientist, all the way back in Chapter 3, Season 3 during Vibin, where it's now Chapter 4, Season 1. Amy was basically the last member of the seven that we had to work with. Jonesy was gone by this point. He disappeared. But we were working with Amy, very closely with Amy. One of the things that she wants to do outside of creating the Rift Gate, helping Stellan create the Rift Gate, she wants to get a body for herself so she can go through the Rift Gate and find the scientist for herself. What is the body that Amy chose? Well, it was the AIM robot. One of the ones that Sergeant Winter had, who, remember, Sergeant Winter was also on the Chapter 4 Fortnite Island. Amy duct tapes a receiver, which is holding her consciousness, duct tapes a receiver to her head and goes to the Rift Gate. That was Chapter 4, Season 1. We haven't heard from Amy since. Now, chat, hear me out. Right now, in Fortnite OG, we're in Chapter 1, Season 6. But what are we about to go into? Chapter 1, Season 7. What period of what Fortnite chapter for main Fortnite storyline? What are we going into? We're going into Chapter 7. So, going into Chapter 1, Season 7, and Fortnite Chapter 7, Season 1. 6, 7. Anyway, Amy should be popping up any day now. Maybe at the end of this week or the start of next week when the new chapter pops up. But this is her point in the storyline to where she shows up. But here's my point. The AIM robot showed up all the way back in Chapter 1, the original Chapter 1, Season 7, and was clearly looking for something. What do you think that robot was looking for, chat? I think that even back then, that was Amy. And Amy was looking for the scientist. The Fortnite OG storyline, the permanent OG mode, it's one big continuous loop. and the seven and us and everything that we're doing is going around over and over and over and over again. This could literally be the 10,000th time that we've ever done this. Something that someone pointed out, I forget who it was, shout out to you. I love you. I can't remember who you were exactly, but something that somebody pointed out to me recently was that on the visitor's outfit, he has marks in his suit. Like he's been, like, you know, like kind of like when you're trying to, it's like the Roman, basically like I don't know if it's not Roman numerals, is it? Tally marks. Thank you, Afro. But you're trying to figure out how long how many days, how many months have I been in prison, right? And you always see that mark, like three or four straight lines and a mark down the middle denotate 5. Mark denotes 5 something, right? On the visitor suit, and I could be wrong by this, but I believe that this is correct because somebody told this to me, and I remember it. Maybe it's a fake memory, but I'm pretty sure this is the case. But on the visitor suit, it has notation marks like that of just, and it's always been there. It's like we never knew why, right? But I think what the visitor is doing is the visitor is counting how many times he's been through this before. From what I'm seeing, if you're looking at the entirety of the Fortnite storyline, all the signs kind of point towards that. Afro also just pointed out something in chat. Batman did the exact same thing. Here's the funny thing, right? Fortnite, the concept of a loop has always been popular inside of Fortnite, right? I think the funny thing is we always got fixated on the idea of the loop on the island, where Fortnite, the game overall, has always been one big continuous loop. The question that I have is, when are we going to see the loop fully reset? Because even Fortnite OG being its own thing is part of the loop, is part of the process. I don't know. There's so many different angles that you could go with this, like where you could examine small little specific details and everything. But I think that if you're looking at the entirety of the Fortnite storyline, the context clues that have been given over the last few years, this is what I'm saying. When people want to talk about like, oh, the Fortnite storyline is dead or it's trash or it doesn't matter, nothing makes sense, those are from people that aren't really studying it. When you know the past of the Fortnite storyline and you kind of see like some of the clues and the leaks and the teasers that are coming out, it kind of paints one big picture. That's why I'm trying to be like, I want to see where this is going, because I think there's some potential here. There's one more big theory that I want to point out to you guys I think is very important, because it's not just the time loop that I find interesting. It's also one of the members of the 7 that stand out to me the most. This is a very big, a very important theory. It's about the paradigm.